Hello, guys. Today we are going to start lesson 2-2. Remember, we are in unit 2, which covers integers and rational numbers. And last week we spent our time focusing on integers, positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. Well, today we're going to start focusing on rational numbers on the number line. Okay, and we're going to get into what that means. So these are the goals that we should be able to do by the end of the week. This is going to be a 2-day lesson. So we're going to break it up over 2 days. But by the end of the week, we should be able to define rational numbers and integers. Okay, rational numbers and integers. We want to know which is which and how to tell them apart. We want to be able to plot integers on a number line. We want to divide number lines into fractional parts. So we're going back to fractions. We want to know how many pieces make a whole on a number line. We want to plot rational numbers. So we need to be able to put positive and negative whole numbers on a number line and also rational numbers. That's going to be fractions and decimals. We want to compare and order rational numbers, and then we want to use rational numbers in the real world. Okay, so we have quite a to-do list, but remember, we're going to be working on this all week. So let me erase this and we will move right along. So the first question we're going to do is a bell ringer question, okay? And the students did this through Pear Deck. You can see the little pear down there. That means that they were actually able to draw on the screen. So this is the question. It says the locations of 4 animals relative to sea level are shown. Now remember, sea level is this water line right here. Sea level on a number line is 0 because it's not above, it's not below, not positive or negative. It's our 0 line. Okay, so we have a seagull that's 3/4 yards above the water. A dolphin is a fourth of a yard below. The shark is 5/10 below, and the sea turtle is 1 yard below. Below is negative. So your directions are to use the provided number line to plot, put dots of the location of the 4 animals that are shown in the picture. And make sure you label your number line. So if you are watching the replay, you might want to get a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, jot down this vertical up and down number line, and see if you can put dots where each of these animals go. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I need to divide my number line up. So I'm going to make this right here be a half. That is a half because it's halfway between 0 and 1. If that is a half, that means this right here is a negative 1/2. Okay, that's negative 1/2. And then over here, between 0 and a half is a fourth. 1/2, 3/4. Okay, that's how number lines work. You kind of have to memorize these benchmark fractions. We all know what a half is, but you need to know 1/4 and 3/4. So what I did is I divided my number line up into a whole lot more tick marks. That's going to help me plot these locations. So the seagull is 3/4 yard above. So I need to go above 3/4. Here's the seagull, it's above, it's 3/4. I'm going to mark it with an SG for seagull. The dolphin is negative 1/4. So from 0, I need to go down to the 1/4. That's going to be my dolphin. My shark is negative 0.5, negative 5/10. Well, I don't have any decimals over here, but I should know in my brain that negative 0.5 is the same as negative 1/2. Okay, and I accidentally made a stray mark I need to erase. So negative 5/10 is the same as negative 1/2. This is where the shark is. I'm just going to put an S for shark. And the sea turtle was down negative 1. It was already labeled for me. I'll put an ST. So what I just did is I put dots and I plotted where each of those goes. Okay, and that's what we're going to be working on today, plotting on a number line, but now instead of using integers, positive and negative whole numbers, now we're going to have fractions and decimals, positive and negative. Now I do want to show you one other way to do this. Okay, so I'm going to erase all of this. I could have done it using decimals. So I would know that in between 0 and 1 whole is 0.5. Okay, or 0.50. We can talk about this like money. You have $0, you have 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, and then you get up to $1. Okay, so if you can think of quarters, like 4 quarters make $1, you can use fourths, or you can use quarters, like count by 25s. So this one over here would be going negative. Negative 25 cents, negative 50 cents, negative 75 cents, and then negative $1. Okay? Now, if you use your Desmos calculator, you can change any fraction into a decimal. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But I would know that 3/4, 3 out of 4 quarters, is 75 cents. Here's my seagull. My dolphin is 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 quarters is 25 cents, but it's negative. There's my dolphin. Shark is negative 0.5. That's the same as negative 0.50. Sea turtle is negative 1 whole. Here it is. So my dots are actually in all the exact same locations, but this time my scale is using decimals. So that was the bell ringer task. Now I'm going to erase this and I want to show you Desmos calculator really quick, just because you might need to use it to help you today during your lesson. If you have a cell phone, you can also use a cell phone calculator. You can use pretty much any calculator that you want. Okay, so let me X out of this real quick. So if you go to Canvas, oh, and I wasn't prepared. I don't have my Canvas up, guys. I had X'd out of it. So if you go to Canvas, there is a link on the home page to the Desmos calculator. Okay? You can change any fraction into a decimal using a calculator, and you can use a converting button, or you can use division. So I'm still trying to get into my math class. I'm so sorry. I'm going to pick third period. And feel free to fast forward until you see the calculator. So on my home page, which remember I updated to be kind of festive, you have highlighted in orange a Desmos scientific calculator here. So say you had that fraction 3/4. You had 3/4 and you did not know how to make 3/4 into a decimal. What you would do is you would you could type in 3/4. Type it in as a fraction and it gives you the decimal version over here. It equals 0.75. Okay? You can do that with any fraction. Say you have 8/9. So I could come over here and clear this and do 8/9, and it tells me over here the answer is 0.88888888 repeating. So it can change any fraction into a decimal, and if I hit this button, it goes back and forth, back and forth. Now, if you don't have a fancy Desmos calculator and you want to use your phone, all you have to know is that a fraction bar means divide. A fraction bar means divide. So you would type in your calculator 3 divided by 4. That's why it wrote it as that fraction. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. Okay? So you're going to need to know that today. So let's go continue with our lesson. Oh my goodness, it's not letting me erase that, guys. Crazy. Okay. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be what is a rational number. So when you look on this screen, you have definitions of numbers written on the side and you have a diagram in the middle. So what we have is we have whole numbers in the number system. Whole numbers are the set of counting numbers and 0. So when we count, we can go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can keep counting up all of these whole numbers. Now, they're trying to trick you here because they have a fraction. But 15/3, 15 divided by 3 is actually 5. That's just a whole number in disguise. So whole numbers are your counting numbers, and 0. Okay, those are like our elementary numbers. Then when we get into 6th grade, we start talking about integers. These are the whole numbers and their opposites, including 0. So this is when we have positive and negative whole numbers, like -7, -81, -14/2 is actually just -7 in disguise. Okay, so these are positive and negative whole numbers. When you get to rational numbers include all of these numbers that are in pink and blue, but they also include our fractions and decimals. Okay, anything that can be written as a fraction or a repeating, which means you have a bar over it, or terminating, which means it ends decimal. Okay, so most numbers you're going to deal with in middle school are going to be rational numbers. They're going to be whole numbers. They're going to be positive or negative, and they're going to be fractions or decimals. Okay, including percents, because any percent can be written as a decimal. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So a rational number is going to be any number that is positive or negative. It can be a whole number, it can be a fraction, and it can be a repeating or ending decimal. Integers are just my positive and negative whole numbers. Okay, so rational numbers include the fractions and decimals, integers do not. So now that you know the difference between those, let's move on with our task of plotting these rational numbers on a number line. So here's a number line that's given to us, and it wants us to use a horizontal, which means flat, to plot -4/3. Okay, well, let's look at the bottom here. The bottom tells me how to divide my number line. Thirds. I need to divide it into thirds. Okay, so when I do this, I have 3 chunks of my number line. See, I have this chunk, I have this chunk, and I have this chunk. Do you see how by putting 2 marks, I divided it into 3 parts? Okay, so I want to divide the number line into thirds. So I'm going to have one here and one here, one here and one here. And I'm going to go back and label these. So this is -1/3. This is -2/3. This is -1 whole, -1 whole because it's -3/3. This is -4/3. -5/3. And this one is -2 because it's -6/3. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm counting backwards, but this time I'm not counting whole numbers, I'm counting by thirds. Okay, I'm dealing with fractional number lines. You can also write these as mixed numbers, but it's not going to do me much good because this is improper. So I want to go back and find -4/3. Well, I already have that labeled. -4/3 is right here. And you can make sure that makes sense. -4/3 is the same as -1 1/3. That means it should be past my -1 and just 1/3 past it. Okay, so that is one of our goals today. Plot rational numbers on a number line. And it's not going to be easy. Okay, let's try another one because this you might be looking at me and thinking, Miss Pickock, I didn't know we were learning Chinese today. It's like you're learning a whole new language. Okay, so here's going to be a vertical number line. Vertical number lines are up and down. So they want me to plot -1.5. Okay, so you can think of this as -1.5 or you can think of it as -1.5. We have to be able to go back and forth between fractions and decimals, fractions and decimals. And if you have a TI-15, you actually have a button on here that has F double arrow D. It changes from fraction to decimal for you. So this one is not going to be too bad. Here's 0. This is down a half. That's down 1 whole. This is down 1.5. That's down 2 wholes. So I'm counting by halves. Half 1, 1.5 2, 2.5 3, 3.5 4. But I'm counting negatives. So I want to go to a -1.5, a -1, and then a half. It would be right here. Okay, so this is a rational number because it is a fraction or a decimal. Okay, it can't be written as a whole, so it's a rational number, and we are plotting it on a number line. To do that, we have to have our integers, 0, -1, -2. We have to divide it into fractional parts. We needed to know how many pieces made a whole, and then we can plot our rational number. Okay, remember our goal is to plot the rational numbers. So let's see what's next in store for us. Let's see what we're going to do next. Erase, 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 erase. Okay, so this was one that you need to try. They want you to plot -5/4 on both of the number lines. So they want you to practice plotting it on a horizontal, which is like flat, side to side, and a vertical, which is up and down. Okay, look at your denominator. This should be divided into fourths, like 4 quarters make $1. So I want you to jot these on paper. If you're watching the recording, pause it and try it. Okay, so fourths mean I don't need to divide it into 4 sections. So you always put one less tick mark than what's on the bottom. So I need 3 tick marks. 1, 2, 3. When I put 3 tick marks in, it made 4 sections. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one also needs 3 sections, or 3 tick marks. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start counting. So this is going to be 1/4, but it's backwards and negative. 2/4, but it's negative. 3/4. This one was 4/4, which is why it's a whole. -5/4. -6/4. -7/4. -8/4. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's why it's -2. You can also write these as mixed numbers. This would be -1 1/4. This one would be -1 2/4. -1 3/4. Improper or mixed numbers, it's a personal choice. They gave it to me improper, so that's why I did mine improper. So I need to go back to find -5/4, which is right here. Okay, that's where it is. Now this one just wants me to go up and down. So remember, it's fourths. You need one less tick mark than the denominator. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You're dividing up your whole into fractional parts. So this is -1/4, -2/4, -3/4. This one's -4/4, which is a whole, -5/4, -6/4, -7/4, -8/4, which is -2 wholes. And then I want to plot, which means put a dot, -5/4. So go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went down 5/4. Each tick mark is a fourth. Okay, so that is plotting on a vertical and horizontal number line. So let's see which one's in store for us next. And this is a very tricky skill. Very tricky indeed. Erase, erase, erase. Erase, 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 erase. Okay. Now they want you to do a decimal. Okay, -1.75. So 75 cents. You can think of it like money. You can also go over here to your Desmos calculator. I can clear this out. I don't know how to make that go away. It's like stuck on the screen forever. Can I erase it now? No. Okay, so it gave me 1.75. So what I'm going to do in my calculator is I'm going to type in 1 point, I got to find my decimal, 0.75. Okay, I type that in, and I'm going to hit enter. Is it going to let me hit enter? Yes, and I want to change it to a fraction right here, 7/4. So 1.75 is actually 7/4. So if you don't want to count by decimals on your number line, you don't have to. You can count by fourths. It's up to you. So I want you to try this one in Pear. Well, you're not on Pear Deck if you're watching the recording. Pause it and try it. Remember, this is the same as negative 7/4. Okay, pause it and try it. All right, let's do this. It gave me decimals, so I'm going to use decimals. And I'm going to start with the vertical number line because it's easier for me to write on. So 75 cents, I make 75 cents using quarters. So I need 3 tick marks. Also, the bottom of the fraction, remember, you go one less, 3 tick marks. So this is going to be, whoops, I have to start at 0. What is Miss Pitcock doing? You always count from 0. So here's 0. I have 25 cents. I have 50 cents. I have 75 cents. And then I have $1. And since these are going down, they're all negative. Then I have $1.25, $1.50, $1.75, and then $2. And they're all going down, so they're negative. Then what I need to do is find what I'm looking for. I'm looking for negative 1.75. Find it on its number line and put a dot. Okay? Find it on its number line, put a dot. It's done. This one I'm going to count by fractions because I personally like fractions on number lines more for some reason. So I want fourths. So you always do 1 tick mark less. So I need 3 tick marks in between each whole number. Okay. And I'm going to label them. So I'm going to count. This is 1/4, 2/4. I'll do my negatives in a second. 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4. And they all went backwards to the left of 0, so they're all negative. And I am looking for 7/4. So I would find where 7/4 is and put a dot. Okay? That's all I'm doing. So fractions and decimals are equivalent. They're equal. Both number lines are correct, even though one's vertical and one's horizontal. One used fractions and one used decimals. They're equivalent. So let's see what else is in store for us. Let me erase these. Erase, erase, erase. Erase. I'll say it again. I really wish there was like a clear all button. Okay, so this is one that's going to be very similar to your homework. Your homework is going to have you dragging and putting dots and identifying dots. So you need to take your colored dots and put them in the correct location. So if you're watching the replay, you can kind of point at the screen and count and think where it needs to go and then play it back for you, play the answer for yourself. So pause it and kind of figure out where it goes. Okay, so my number line only has my whole numbers labeled. So I'm going to go through and label this. I have 3 tick marks in between my whole numbers. So that means they're fourths. And you can tell that because if you want to figure out how many chunks it is between the holes, from 0 to 1, it was 4 pieces. So this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is a whole. So this one is going to be negative 1/4, negative 2/4, negative 3/4. This is negative 4/4 because it's a whole, negative 5/4, negative 6/4, negative 7/4. Okay, so all I did was label my number line because that's going to help me figure out location. So let's start with my red circle. My red circle is negative 1 1/4. That means negative 1. I need to go backwards 1. And then I need to go backwards 1/4 extra. It's going to be right here. Also, remember, this is a mixed number. You can turn it improper and make it mad. Multiply. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. This is the same as negative 5/4. Okay? Let's go to green. So green was negative 0.75. So 75 cents is 3/4, right? It takes 3/4 to get to 75, and it was negative. So go backwards to 3/4. 1, 2, 3. Negative 3/4 is the same as 0.75. Negative 0.75. Let's check blue. Blue is 25 cents. 25 cents is 1/4, and it's positive. So you need to go forward 1/4. If you weren't sure, you could have typed that in your calculator and changed it to a fraction. 0.25 is the same as 1/4. Negative 1/4 is going to be pretty easy for me because it's labeled that way. Negative 1/4 should be right here. And what you're going to find when we come back on the next day this week, so whether it's Wednesday or Thursday for your class, now they're in order. So the red dot is the smallest, the blue dot is the biggest, because the further left, less, further right is bigger. Okay, so we just put them in order using a fractional number line. Tough skill, guys. Very, very tough skill. So if you're struggling, it's okay. You can go back and rewatch it. I also have some resources in Canvas. Okay, I think this might be your last question. You need to write what is the rational number for the location of each letter. Okay, so pause it, jot it down on some paper. You can write it as a fraction or a decimal. It's up to you. Okay, let's start with A. So let's figure out this number line first. So in between two whole numbers, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So my number lines are in fourths. So this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 as a whole. So this is negative 1/4, negative 2/4, negative 3/4, negative 4/4, negative 5/4, negative 6/4, negative 7/4, negative 8/4 is a negative 2. Okay, so I labeled this. So A is negative 2/4. That can be simplified to negative 1/2. And if you're a decimal person, you could have written negative 0.5. Okay, but that is a negative half. It is halfway between 0 and negative 1. And B is right at 3/4. If you chose to do a decimal, that is a positive 0.75. And C is at negative 7/4. You could leave it as negative 7/4. You could change that to a decimal using a calculator or your brain and get negative 1.75. You could have changed it to a mixed number and had negative 1 because you went backwards one whole. And then you went 1, 2, 3 pieces past that. It could have been negative 1 3/4. So when we do rational numbers, there are multiple ways you can represent the value because you can represent it as a fraction or a decimal. Every rational fraction can be written as a decimal, and every decimal can be written as a fraction when you're talking about rational numbers. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. And I think that's the last one. Don't quote me on it. I'll hit the button and we'll see. Okay, erase. Okay, let's check. Yes, so that is the last thing that we are doing today. So remember our goals. We want to define rational numbers. Rational numbers are going to be all of our numbers, our whole numbers, positive and negative, fractions and decimals. Integers are going to be those positive and negative whole numbers. So integers aren't fractions and decimals. We want to be able to plot integers on a number line, like 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to divide the number line into fractional parts based on the denominator. You got to figure out how many pieces make a whole on a number line. And we want to plot rational numbers. So these are the skills we worked on today. When we come back later this week, we're going to compare in order and talk about real world problems. Okay, so your homework is going to be in Savas Realize. Your homework is only 4 questions. 4 questions, but you really need to take your time because they're tricky. Okay, they're tricky questions. So in Savas Realize, you will be working on this one right here. Okay, 2, plotting rational numbers on a number line. Plotting rational numbers on a number line because that's what we worked on today. You could also look in modules for your assignment. So when we go to modules for math, you will see your topic 2, integers and rational numbers, for this week's date. Today is either going to be October 12th or 13th for your class. And when you click on this, it will have the recorded video that you're watching now. It has our objectives and it has your assignment, 2-2 plotting rational numbers. Now, if you need a little bit of extra help and you thought I was speaking a completely different language today, I do have visuals and videos for extra help. So under the resources, there's videos of different teachers explaining the same topic, okay? So that's there for you if you need it. All right, guys, that's it. Bye.